You know that feeling when you're surrounded by people, but you've never felt more alone? When life looks completely fine on the outside, but something on the inside has quietly gone silent. No dramatic breakdown, no single moment you can point to. Just a slow, creeping emptiness that you can't explain to anyone, because even you don't fully understand it yourself. And then, almost without warning, something you deeply depended on is taken from you. Not a small thing, something significant, a relationship you invested everything into, a dream you spent years building, a version of yourself you were absolutely certain about. And when it happens, no one prepares you for how quiet everything becomes afterward. But here's the question I want to ask you before anything else, and I need you to really sit with it. What if everything falling apart in your life right now is not a punishment? What if the very things God is removing are the things that were quietly blocking you from the life you were created for? What if the emptiness you're feeling is not the end of something, but the beginning of everything that actually matters? Stay with me, because this message might completely change how you see the season you're in. There is a story in the Bible that most people know, but very few truly sit with long enough to understand. The story of Job. Job was not a careless man. Scripture describes him as blameless and upright, a man who feared God and turned away from evil. His life, by every measure, was full. He had a family he loved. He had wealth, reputation, and community. He had done everything right. And then, in what feels almost brutal to read, it was all taken. His children, his livelihood, his health, even his closest friends turned on him, sitting beside him in his suffering only to suggest he must have done something to deserve it. But here is what stopped me the last time I read that story. Job never stopped speaking to God. He cried out. He questioned. He sat in the ash and wept. But he never walked away. And at the end of it, God did not rebuke Job for his questions. He rebuked the friends who thought they had God completely figured out. What God revealed to Job in the silence was not an explanation. It was simply his presence. And somehow, in the middle of all that loss, that was enough. That is the tension this message lives in, not a promise that everything will be restored, but a deeper truth, that God allows the emptiness because He's the only one who can fill it the right way. There comes a moment in a man's life when everything he once depended on begins to fall apart. Not slowly, not with warning, all at once. The people he trusted start to drift. The plans he carefully laid begin to crumble. The security he took for granted quietly disappears. And he is left standing there with nothing but silence. It feels confusing, it feels painful, and if he is honest with himself, it feels deeply unfair. But what if that moment is not destruction? What if it is divine redirection? Because sometimes God does not remove things from your life to hurt you. He removes them because they were standing between you and who you were created to become. As long as your life is full of noise, you will never fully listen. As long as you have something else to lean on, you will never fully discover what it means to lean on Him. So God allows everything else to quietly fade, not to leave you with nothing, but so you can finally see clearly. It is easy to say you have faith when life is comfortable. When the money is steady, the relationships are solid, and the future feels manageable. Faith spoken from that place costs nothing. But real faith, the kind that actually means something, is revealed when everything you depended on is gone. Because when there are no more backup plans, no more options, no more people to call, you are left with one question that cuts through everything. Do you still trust God when He is all you have left? That is the moment where faith stops being something you talk about and becomes something you actually live. It is raw, it is uncomfortable, and it is also, in a strange way, sacred. Because in that place, you are not performing belief. You are discovering it. Psalm 46 says, God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Not a distant help, not a future help, present, right there in the middle of the wreckage. There is a kind of loneliness that breaks people, but there is another kind that transforms them. When God isolates you, it is not always rejection. Sometimes it is preparation. Because growth requires separation, you cannot step into a higher version of yourself while holding on to everything that defined the lesser one. So God allows distance from people who distract you, distance from environments that keep you small, distance from comfortable routines that were keeping you stagnant without you even realizing it. And in that quiet, something begins to shift. You start to hear a voice you were too busy to notice before. You begin to see patterns in your own thinking you never had the stillness to examine. You start to ask better questions, not just, why is this happening to me? But, what is this season trying to teach me? Some of the strongest men in history were not built in crowds or comfort. Moses spent 40 years in the desert before he was ready to lead a nation. David spent years running from Saul, hunted alone, writing psalms in caves before he ever sat on a throne. Joseph was thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, imprisoned on false charges. And every single one of those painful chapters was preparation for a purpose so large, he couldn't have imagined it from the bottom of that pit. The wilderness is not a detour, it is the path. Here is something worth sitting with quietly. Sometimes we grieve things God removed, without ever pausing to consider what He protected us from by removing them. That relationship that ended, that opportunity that collapsed, that door that closed in your face when you were so certain it was meant for you. What if it wasn't rejection? What if it was protection? What if God, who sees every chapter of your story, including the ones you haven't lived yet, saw something you couldn't see from where you were standing? What if He closed that door because what was behind it would have cost you something you couldn't afford to lose? God does not just order your steps. He also, quietly and sometimes painfully, blocks paths that were never meant to be yours. And one day, with enough distance to see clearly, you will understand that some of the most important moments in your life were not the things that worked out. They were the things that didn't. Fire has two purposes. It can destroy, or it can purify. When God allows you to walk through a difficult season, the fire is not there to burn you down. It is there to refine you. To burn away pride you didn't know you were carrying. To remove fear that had disguised itself as practicality. To strip away everything that was never truly aligned with who you are meant to be. When you come out of that season, you do not look the same, not because you've gotten harder or more closed off, but because you've gotten clearer. Clearer about what matters, clearer about who you are, clearer about what you will and will not carry anymore. Isaiah wrote, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned." Notice the word when, not if. These seasons are not accidents. They are passages. There comes a moment, if you stay in the process instead of running from it, when something quietly shifts inside you. You stop fighting the emptiness and start listening to it. You stop asking why you're alone and start asking what God is trying to reveal to you in this space. And the silence that once felt unbearable starts to feel something else entirely. It starts to feel like preparation. That empty space becomes the place where you pray differently than you've ever prayed before. Not a rehearsed prayer, a real one. The kind that comes from somewhere deep because it has nowhere else to go. And in that place, something permanent begins to be built. Not on circumstances, not on other people, not on the things the world says should make you feel secure, but on something that does not move. What the world calls rock bottom, God calls a foundation. Because when everything temporary has fallen away, there is finally space to build something real. Something that will hold the weight of who you are becoming. Something that will not collapse the next time the storm comes, because next time you will not be standing on sand. So if you are in a season right now where things feel empty, where the people are gone, where life simply does not make sense, do not rush out of it. Do not numb it. Do not spend all your energy trying to rebuild what God deliberately allowed to fall. Sit with it. Pray through it. Let it do what it came to do. Because this season, as painful as it is, may be the most important one of your life. God is not punishing you. He is preparing you. He is removing what is temporary to establish what is permanent. He is stripping away the noise so you can finally hear what was always true. You were never meant to be held together by any of those things. You were always meant to be held together by Him. And one day, maybe not today, maybe not this year, you will look back at this exact moment, this quiet, painful, confusing season, and you will not remember it as the time you lost everything. You will remember it as the time you found something real, something unshakable. You will remember it as the time you found God, not as a backup plan, not as a last resort, but as the foundation you should have been building on all along. And that will change everything. If this message spoke to something in you today, leave a comment below and just say 3 words. God is enough. Because someone will scroll through those comments in their own darkest moment, and those 3 words might be exactly what they needed to see. You are not alone in this. And the season you are in right now is not the end of your story.